Hi, this is Logan Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons and the Dungeons & Dragons movie that is happening. And here's the question. Is Hugh Grant getting cast as the main villain of the Dungeons & Dragons movie good or bad for the Dungeons & Dragons community? Let's go. Let's answer it. All right. So I won't bury the lead. I think it's very good. And I'm going to make my argument for that. Why is it good that Hugh Grant has been cast as the villain for Dungeons & Dragons? Quite a few reasons. So one, from everything I can tell, it doesn't look like... I think it would be nice if the people who are cast for this were fans of Dungeons & Dragons, but that's very unlikely, right? And you know, I get it. So I don't think that Hugh Grant is a Dungeons & Dragons fan. I'm almost positive of that because I follow Hugh Grant's career. I've watched many of his movies. Love Actually, I've seen that. Also, Paddington. He was in Paddington 2, and he was absolutely fantastic in Paddington 2. I'm a big fan of the Paddington movies. I know that sounds strange. They're really quite good. If you haven't seen them, treat yourself. They're really, really good. And so I think they're excellent. And I think Hugh Grant was one of the best things in the Paddington 2 movie. He was really quite spectacular. And then Hugh Grant has quite a few... Hugh Grant was recently in a Guy Ritchie movie. And he's a real actor with a massive catalog of films. And I think he's done easily 50 movies, right? So it's really... So what does Hugh Grant bring to the party, right? The biggest thing that Hugh Grant brings to the party is real star power. This is, you know, and so one of the issues is this Dungeons & Dragons going to be a real movie? It's a big question, right? There's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't, okay? First of all, the Dungeons & Dragons movie is starting from a bad place because the last Dungeons & Dragons movie was a terrible failure. There's no question. Nobody's arguing that the 2000 Dungeons & Dragons movie was a good movie at the macro level. There's certainly a few exceptions, people who liked it. There's a few people who liked it here and there. But the majority of the audiences were highly unimpressed. And that's saying it kindly. So basically, there's a bad reputation on the Dungeons & Dragons movies already, right? So basically, you know, with that going forward, is this going to get real money, real funding? Is it going to be taken seriously by the reviewers? Is it going to be taken seriously by the media to give it lead-in stories, all those kind of things, right? Well, if Hugh Grant is there, he really helps this. He helps draw more and more stars to the property, and once the movie starts, Hugh Grant is a real actor with a real actor's process and diligence and presence and gravitas, right? So if there's a bunch of people, you know, just not taking it seriously, I think Hugh Grant is going to say, Hugh Grant was in Paddington 2 and helped to make Paddington 2 an amazing film, right? And it really is an amazing film. If you think I'm wrong, it's probably because you haven't seen it, right? But it was a fantastic movie. And I think that's because when you hire Hugh Grant, he drops in, man. Like, he is there to do his acting and take it incredibly seriously. And I think Hugh Grant's going to do his research, and he's going to really raise the standard that is demanded across every actor who is on that set, right? And so, yes, they can have a good time. Maybe they can have a couple jokes about, you know, Dungeons & Dragons, this or that. But overall, they're not going to joke about being in the movie, I think. And I think Hugh Grant will take this seriously and will really set a great base level for all the actors who are working on the movie, right? I don't make any illusions that Hugh Grant could actually affect the producers, the writers, or the director, okay? I don't think it doesn't flow that way. Generally, actors, it's incredibly rare that an actor would be able to change the mind of a producer, a writer, or a director. Actually, I think writers can sometimes change the mind of a writer, but it's not going to matter if the director isn't in line. And I think it's very rare that an actor can change the mind of a producer. Not an executive producer, a producer, the actual real producers. Okay? So I think that's really interesting. I think this is really great overall. I think Hugh Grant, not Hugh Jackman, Hugh Grant is going to do a great job with this role, and I'm very excited for him being cast as the main villain for Dungeons and Dragons. I think this bodes really well. Another thing I think is really nice is Hugh Grant being cast as the villain in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. The great thing is, I'm betting that generally Hugh Grant's most dedicated and most numerous fans are not Dungeons and Dragons fans, and that's actually good. That's a great thing, right? Because that means that that Hugh Grant will draw in some viewers who wouldn't be there for Dungeons and Dragons itself. Okay. Also, I think I would bet that there's going to be people who say to their paramour or their spouse, right? Hey, you want to go see this movie with me, right? And then they're going to say, oh, who's in it? And they'll say, oh, Hugh Grant. And then the spouse or the paramour will be like, oh yeah, okay, I've seen their films. Let's go, right? So I think that's going to help overall. The other thing, I just want to retouch one more idea, is this idea of, is this a real movie, right? So one of the issues is, it's probably going to be at least a year before this comes out, and this Dungeons and Dragons movie could be a great candidate for it releasing not on a streamer, but being a real movie. Real movies do not open on day one on streamers. That's a television movie, and television movies have exactly the reputation that television movies deserve, right? So I think the Dungeons and Dragons community, the people who are attached to Dune, right? They were incredibly upset when it was announced that Dune would just be chucked over onto HBO Max the same way Tom and Jerry was chucked over there, right? They were like, this is a real movie. We want it to be a real series, right? That's what we want. Dungeons and Dragons want. So the nice thing is, this is going to be delivered probably in 2022, right? And by then, there's a possibility that movie theaters will be open. It's not a huge possibility, but it would be really great if this could be a real movie released in real theaters, right? And not released day one on streamer, right? But having a nice window where it can just play in theaters like real movies do, right? And Hugh Grant is going to help toward that end. I think Hugh Grant being cast as the main villain in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, in the 2022 Dungeons and Dragons movie, is fantastic for the Dungeons and Dragons community. What do you think? Do you think it's good or bad, right? Do you think it's a problem that there's very little crossover between Hugh Grant fans and Dungeons and Dragons fans? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.